Throughout the history of antisemitism, blood libel was always a tool in the arsenal of the haters. They always use these stories about what evil Jews are doing to justify all kinds of atrocities and monstrosities. In the Middle Ages, they used to say that Jews are poisoning the wells. They blamed Jews for the Black Death. They said Jews kill Christian children and use their blood in their food. The current genocide claim in Gaza is just the modern version of that. You might say, but there are videos and I saw a TikToker say that, so it must be true. And that's both adorable and frustratingly foolish. Let's start with what the word actually means. According to the Cambridge Academic Dictionary, a genocide is the intentional killing of all of the people of a nation, religion, or racial group. So the Holocaust, that is a genocide. What the Turks did to the Armenians, that was a genocide. Hell, what the Turks are doing right now to the Kurds, that is a genocide, not that anyone in the West cares. Now, what if I told you that Israel was accused of committing genocide a long time before the war in Gaza even started? For example, here is an article that claims Israel's officials have admitted to a plan to concentrate and exterminate the Palestinians. And look at that, it's all the way back in 2014. 10 years of evil Jews exterminating the poor Gazans. That must have left a mark, right? Let's look at the numbers. In 2014, there were 1.7 million Palestinians in Gaza. By 2021, there were 2.1 million. Now that is some ineffective genocide, isn't it? I don't know, maybe when they committed genocide against us, we Jews just did it wrong. Because we lost millions. The Palestinians seem to gain millions. Or another explanation might be that it's simply not happening. But this blood libel didn't start in 2014 either. Here is another piece from the same publication using the same language from as early as 2007. Now, mind you, this really makes the evil Jewish plan weird, because 2007, that's just 2 years after Israel withdrew completely from the Gaza Strip, removing all military presence and all settlers. So the plan was to completely leave Gaza, give full control to the Palestinian Authority, and then start the genocide? Okay, let's look at the numbers again. You know what? Let's look at the total numbers of Palestinians in that time period. In 2007, there were 3.7 million Palestinians, almost 3.8. By 2021, there were 5.2 million. Once again, the Jews turn out to be pretty crap at genocide. I mean, when we try to commit it, I think we've proven we're great at being at the receiving end. Those Palestinians are amateurs. They actually gain millions. We lost 6. Now, you may say, well, that's maybe true then, but surely what is happening now is genocide, isn't it? Is it? Let's look at numbers. Aside from the fact that many data scientists who looked into the reported numbers that all came from Hamas, the terror group, have come to the conclusion they are probably completely fake, because won't you know it, people who can burn babies and rape little girls to death also have no problem lying. Strange, I know. But let's say that they are right. Let's say the number of casualties in Gaza is around 40,000 people. Notice how the media never differentiate between the militant and civilian casualties. Even the anti-Semites at the BBC admitted that they don't know, because when they get the numbers from Hamas, they are not told if these are civilians or militants. Well, Israel does keep count of every time the IDF soldiers get into battles and gun down Hamas terrorists. And at the time of this video, it is estimated that around 20,000 Hamas terrorists were killed in the war, which is about 2/3 of their entire force. That means that half of the number of casualties they report is actually militants, which shows that their other claim of 70% being women and children doesn't make any sense. And by the way, it shouldn't have made sense to you from the start. What, are you stupid? You think Israeli bombs are gender biased? That they become duds when they hit a Palestinian man? How can you supposedly carpet bomb an area and hit 70% women and children? That is statistically impossible, unless you're telling me all men are in shelters and all women and children are on the roof. Which would be a very weird and savage practice by the Hamas terrorists, wouldn't it? But if 50% of the casualties are actually militants, then you know that 50% of them are adult men. So the entire 70% women and children is nonsense to begin with. And once again, Israel is doing weird things for someone who is trying to commit genocide, like stopping the fighting in order to work with the UN to vaccinate the entire Palestinian population. What genociding force does that? Or sending in tons and tons of supplies, food and medicine. Why would you do that if the idea is to kill them all? Because it's a lie. Because it was never a plan. Ever. The fact that you believe it is possible shows how anti-Semitic you are and how much you don't understand Jewish culture. We don't poison wells, we don't drink Christian blood, and we don't commit genocide. Not even against those who declare openly that they want to do it to us. Some might say, well, what about the ICC? The ICC never claimed Israel is committing genocide, ever, because they would have to prove it legally, and they simply can't do that because it's not true. The only thing they ever said was there is grounds for suspicions of war crimes. Now that is disputable, but a war crime is not genocide. There's a difference between the two. For example, the 7th of October atrocities that everybody keeps ignoring are a war crime. Which is why the ICC issued an arrest warrant to the ghost of the dead Hamas militant Muhammad Def. I shit you not. They issued an arrest warrant to a dead person. That's how seriously you should take the ICC, unfortunately. Now, let's think for a moment. Who is actually benefiting from a high civilian casualty number? It's certainly not Israel. In Israeli society, that is a taboo, regardless of what they told you. When in 1982, the Christian militias in Lebanon committed the Sabra and Shatila massacre, just because the IDF was near, just because there was a feeling that the IDF might have stopped it, but didn't, there were huge demonstrations, hundreds of thousands of people all over the country demanding the resignation of people in government, and the Minister of Defense and the Chief of Staff at the time both had to resign because of that public pressure. So a high civilian casualty number in reality is damaging politically to Israeli politicians. Even Netanyahu keeps giving these press conferences where he talks about all the measures taken to avoid civilian casualties. That's not just for the benefit of the world. He does it to appease the Israeli public as well. And if we look at the outside, every time the media lies and tells you that evil Jews bombed some brown people and bajillion are dead, it damages Israel. It doesn't help in any way. It does help the other side. It gains them support and sympathy. It helps them make 1930s style antisemitism mainstream in the West again, cool and hip with the young people. It helps them sell that the evil Jews are the men you need to hate. Which is why they are the ones who have an interest in having a high casualty number, and they are the ones who have an interest that you would believe it. Now, the publication that I gave you here, you may not have heard about. It is an anti-Semitic pro-terror publication ran by Palestinians. And these kind of organizations, they are the source of all modern anti-Semitism. If you go to the source of all of these blood libels, it's always the same source. Palestinian or Muslim anti-Semitic groups trying to vilify Jews in order to make the world turn its back on Israel because they believe that without outside support, they would be able to come into Israel and commit the 7th of October on the entire country. Actually commit a second Holocaust. That is the aim. And it's not, don't believe this Jew. Go, do research, read the Hamas charter. They are not shy about it. They say themselves in English. You see this word, intifada? You might have seen it in one of the weekly hate marches they had all around, where they called to globalize the intifada. And they may have told you that it means resistance. It does not. It means extermination of your enemy, deadly attacks, indiscrimination between civilians and military targets. Children should not be shown mercy. When in 2000, Arafat launched the second intifada, more than 1,000 Israeli civilians were murdered in terror attacks. Snipers were aiming at babies in their parents' arms, and suicide bombers targeted teenagers, families, and civilians in buses. That is what an intifada means. The people who push the genocide blood libel have no limits, no moral compass. That's why you might have heard them use the Hebrew word Shoah to describe what is happening in Gaza. The word means holocaust, and that's how evil and twisted these people are. They have no problem using our own words, our own trauma, our own persecution against us. They are neo-Nazis. They are Holocaust deniers. By the way, factually, the current president of the Palestinian Authority is a known and a very public and vocal Holocaust denier. That is the side you chose to be on. They are Holocaust supporters. That is the true meaning of from the river to the sea. The river in question is the River Jordan. The sea is the Mediterranean Sea. Between them now, Israel and the Palestinian territories. If Palestine is free in that area, that means Israel is destroyed. There are 8 million Jews living in Israel. The only way you destroy it is by murdering most of them. So a second Holocaust. So that's what the genocide blood libel is meant to achieve. That's why it has been pushed by anti-Semites for 20 years now. 20 years of useless genocide while the Palestinian population keeps growing. And yet, the world doesn't shut it down as the bullshit it is. That right there tells you all you need to know about who truly controls the world these days. When you give your hand to that lie, not only do you help people who want to commit a second Holocaust, but you spit in the face of true victims of genocide around the world, like the Armenians or the Kurds, who Turkey is committing genocide against right now, and yet nobody cares. So to those who want to be on the right side of history, to those who want to believe they are moral and good people, are you willing to stand by people who promote lies, blood libel, and want to see a second Holocaust happening? Or are you going to do the brave thing and rebel? And stand up against hate, lies, and prejudice?